From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure, life itself. This particular episode is Subjective Wars. Pull back the curtain and say, we just decided the topic right before we hit the button, and we're already reeling as we begin recording. Excited to discuss this. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Napzok. This is more rattling than the earthquake recorded on our show earlier this week.
I'm Jennifer Landa, and I was speechless when they shared this topic idea. So, yeah. Woof.
Yeah. This might just be a half hour of us being speechless, a really kind of concept art episode of our podcast YouTube show. Anyway, this is Subjective Wars. If you're just checking it out for the first time, we pick two topics in Star Wars or pop culture, and we make ourselves decide between two things that we usually really, really like both. So it is torturous and hopefully fun. And we come up with our subjective answer. And of course, like to look at the comments to see what your answer is and why. We have been coming up with the topics at the last minute, which is really nice because we want this to just be a gut show, not a tons of research show, but just a what do we feel? What is our truth? And Ken came up with this topic. He said, hey, why don't we go big? Let's just do Yoda versus Grogu. Old Yoda versus baby Yoda, adult Yoda versus baby Yoda, whatever you want to call them, adult Grogu versus baby Yoda, however you want to frame it, Yoda versus Grogu. Ken, this was your brutal topic suggestion. We always start with what's your just gut instinct? Do you start with a bias? Is it age-based? You've lived with Yoda longer. Are you sticking with him or are you jumping ship?
Yeah, the gut reaction is, well, of course, Yoda. And then I think of some of my favorite moments in Star Wars in the last 5-6 years, and many of them do revolve around Grogu. And I said recently on the show, I think one of the greatest marketing victories in all of Star Wars history, and I don't even say that cynically as if they were like, oh, we need something cute. I think they created this character. They took a big creative risk, and it created these wonderful moments. It's not just the cute eating the cookies or stealing the cookies. It's not, the humor with IG-11 and, yes, no, yes, no, which still makes me laugh. But it's that episode 2 of season 1 where he is connected to Din before even Din's aware of it, and he's trying to help him and heal him. It's just some of my favorite stuff. So I'm still leaning towards Yoda, but Grogu is right there, rising with the bullet.
Ooh, all right. So, Jennifer, where do you go with your gut? Are you torn immediately like Ken, or do you have a favorite already?
This is wrecking my gut. It is challenging my perfectionist ways. I like to do a lot of research. And if I look at the Wikipedia entries on both of these, it will be pages and pages, right?
Right.
So I just have to go with my gut. And I don't even know where to go. I go with nostalgia, puppet Yoda. Do I go with the adorable pop culture phenomenon that is Grogu? Like, what do I do? Do I go with how much merch I have? I have way more merch of Grogu than I do of Yoda. Why is that? These are philosophical questions that we're going to have to really examine in this episode.
They really are. I mean, they're so they're both icons of their time. They're both sort of ambassadors of Star Wars of their age. You know, in 1980, Yoda was hey, if you thought Star Wars was weird and wild, look at this. The Muppet is a main character, and you're supposed to take him deadly serious, and he scares the crap out of you. And kids love him, and all these things. And Grogu is the same thing, putting all these emotional buttons, just unbelievably cute, but also you really want to protect him. I think Grogu came along at such a great time to be an avatar of a less complicated life. I think that's part of the reason that people love all well done young characters, but Grogu in particular was such a beautiful blank canvas of that little guy doesn't know about LinkedIn or politics or a pandemic. That little guy just wants to eat or hug his dad. And if he's pissed, he just wants to choke you a little bit. He's just instinct. And there is something so wonderfully freeing about Grogu that I think that's why I gravitate toward him. I think for my bias, though, it's going to be hard to push me off of Yoda. He was so my guy growing up. I think I didn't realize it at the time, but I think it was one of the first times that I felt seen, because I was too young to fully understand, oh, he's just tricking Luke when I first saw Empire. It's just like, he's weird and he's funny, and Luke doesn't take him seriously, but actually he knows a lot. That's the way I felt as a kid, of like, everybody just laughs at me and pats my head, but I know stuff. So I strangely related to Yoda as a child, and then as you grow up and you understand all the wisdom on a deeper level, it sinks in. So I think I'm starting with a Yoda bias.
I mean, look, this is a topic we should have recruited some Gen Zer, all right, someone from a new generation. But the nice thing is there's enough about Grogu that I think we all love that we could pull on some heartstrings. We could find some strings to pull on, you know.
Ken, for you, kind of choosing between them, is there in age thing, in terms of like, Yoda's almost like that pop star who's hitting their late 40s, early 50s, and has had many permutations, many lives. They've had successes, they've had failures, they've said weird things in the paper, they've apologized for them and come back. Like, storied career from Empire to weird prequel puppet Phantom Menace Yoda who disappeared, to the shock of him having a lightsaber, to on and to all the way up to the pop at the end of the Acolyte, right? This storied career versus a breakout star who's had one album and hasn't had a chance to up in front of the public anymore.
I was gonna make a Chapel Roan to Lady Gaga comparison, but I don't think Gaga's said too many problematic things there. Quite the opposite, I would argue. But I almost think Yoda might be Meatloaf, late great Meatloaf, where had a late 70s, early 80s explosion where everyone just absolutely loved him, then just kind of went away for a while, comes back in the mid 90s to late 90s with a newfound respect and appreciation and a different angle on the same thing. And then later on in life gets questioned a little bit more for some of the actions, thoughts, words, and beliefs. So Yoda's Meatloaf, like a bat out of hell. We dive into this. Yeah, there's something about, we don't know the end of Grogu's story, obviously, and it's still so new. And I think that it's a great comparison the more I think of it. We love talking music here a lot and connecting with it, where a new artist comes along. I mentioned, like, I'm a huge Chapel Roan fan, even though she's not necessarily writing music for me. It's not necessarily the audience I'm supposed to be around. But I just absolutely respect what she's doing, pulling from the past, doing something so unique to herself. And we don't know where it's going. We're watching this rising star. Grogu shows up, and I think we've revealed over time there were strong whispers and rumors in this town about what was coming. There was this thought of they're doing something with the Yoda thing, and then when it happened, I was like, this is I don't know. And then immediately the first song comes out, The Little Hand, and you're like, oh no, I'm on board, and in a different way. They're so different, obviously.
Yeah.
But anyways, I don't know if that answers your question, but it set me on a music binge there. But just made me think about those early days of Grogu.
The early days of Grogu with the hits. Yeah. No, we won't. We won't turn it into a pop music discussion. But I think there is a relation to me of what's powerful about Grogu is it's incredibly specific. But within that specificity is the universal, which is what I feel about great art. And like, I just recently watched the video for Pink Pony Club, and like, that's not my life experience, but the life experience of I want something, and maybe the people closest to me don't understand what it is, and I got to go for it. That part of it is universal, and I think there is a strong connection between Grogu and Chapel Roan. Jennifer, how do you feel about the idea of Yoda? Has been around for a long time, has had to take some hits from the fandom, versus Grogu is still in the honeymoon phase?
I think Grogu would not be Grogu without Yoda. So the reason why Grogu was so successful is the character played on something we already loved, or that was already a part of pop culture, and just made it infinitely more cute. It's like the chibi version of Yoda. And the character doesn't really talk. It's
Mhm.
babbles, like coos and goos, as we would say. And so there's just something like you just want to hold him and cradle him like a baby, hence the name Baby Yoda. And I think that that was universal. I think about how, I don't want to say that Yoda was divisive, but certainly there, I think, were critics that were like, what is this puppet, like what is this,
Mhm.
like, yes, spewing some wise sayings, but it's just kind of weird. Whereas Grogu was not weird. Grogu appealed to not only like the Star Wars fans, but like truly the masses, the people who really are not, didn't consider themselves to be Star Wars fans. So yeah, Grogu is like Katy Perry and her, when she was first came out, like with firework and stuff like that. Right?
We haven't gotten to dancing sharks yet. Oh boy.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
dancing sharks or
totally. Yes.
destroying protected environments for a music video. The
Music
current
videos.
Katy Perry
Yeah.
discussion that
Yeah.
I don't think Yoda has done either. I was going through some old photos from when I moved to Los Angeles, and I was packing up from Minneapolis, so I was taking pictures of some treasured items, and I came across a picture of an old magazine of Star Wars Insider that I forgot I had, and it's like an interview with Mark Hamill, and then it says episode 1 cast announced. Flip to page 15 for reveal of prequel Yoda, and now it feels like it's this setup for like a shock because that Phantom Menace puppet Yoda is, I think, one of Yoda's challenging times. Apologies to people who love Phantom Menace puppet Yoda, but I've loved the memes of Phantom Menace puppet Yoda isn't real, he can't hurt you, and now largely disappeared. So I guess that leads me to sort of looking at both the characters for their moments of sort of whimsy and wonder, and also their moments of depth. So, Ken, for you, looking at Yoda, what are some of like the standout moments for either whimsy or depth?
I'll go right to the Last Jedi moment, and him showing up. Those little ears, those little Yoda ears, not the Grogu ears, the Yoda ears showing up on camera, and just coming in. 40 years or so after he took the world by storm, a little less than 40. And just, I've written about this, I've talked about this, feeling like home. I talk about his theme being the sound of enlightenment, but just being comfort and guidance. And when that hits, like, man, I feel safe. I feel I'm curled up in the lap of Yoda. And for him to show up for Luke at that moment and give him some heartfelt advice, the we are what they grow beyond, such a beautiful moment, and how it wasn't just a yay, clap, clap, clap. It's Yoda. He showed up to say, I still got something for you, because the journey still goes on and you're still going to learn. And remember what I told you? You didn't? That's fine. How about this reminder now? And how about I move my little finger and lightning strike your tree there? I'll take care of that for you. It was such a powerful scene so many years later, that I go to that, man. I go to that among, so many wonderful moments, including his defeat to Palpatine, and just the sadness and the failure that he would turn into a lesson later on. Anything with Luke and Jedi, which was my actual introduction to him, and my sister crying as he died and had to be taken out of the theater. She screamed, Yoda-yo, Yoda-yo. Like, I have a lot of those moments, but I'll go to Last Jedi.
Yeah, Last Jedi, I think what powerful about it is Luke obviously needs some help. He needs to talk to his old mentor, but I love how much Yoda's like, but dude, now we're the two old mentors, sitting on the porch commiserating. Like, you did succeed, Luke. You are, this great Jedi that I believed you could be. It's beautiful stuff. Jennifer, what are some Yoda moments, either of great depth or more whimsy, that have spoken to you over the years?
I think for me, Yoda teaches the characters in the story, right, these wise lessons, but he teaches us so many lessons as well, as you talked about, Ken. Whereas Grogu teaches Mando lessons, but I'm not really getting the same type of wisdom, obviously, from Grogu. So that to me is
yet.
But that's where Yoda has a true advantage. I mean, I have on our wall, luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. There, do or do not, there is no try. If we just look at the quotes that have been shared by Yoda, we use those every day. I use those in my own life. And so it's like, to me, that's what the character represents, is wisdom. It's like, imagine if you're a child and you have a little stuffed animal that's sharing all these wise words. How incredible would that be? It's also reminiscent of Sesame Street. It's why these characters are delivering these big themes, these big life lessons through puppets. We haven't even gotten into the Frank Oz of it all, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole other section we'll have to dive into. But I can't even think, everything that Yoda says and does is just brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that so many of his moments and his lines in Empire Strikes Back, when I was a kid, my favorite Yoda quote was "mine, mine, mine," and
Ding, 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 ding,
yeah, whacking R2, which is so great. But over the years, so many different moments where the quicker, easier, more seductive has been, a guidepost to what kind of jokes do you want to make? How do you want to handle yourself when you're upset? All those things. Always with him, it cannot, or always with you, it cannot be done. That Yoda as a teacher who's not mad but disappointed in Luke, is so powerful. In that idea that if you decide ahead of time that you can't do it, and you're constantly having that attitude of negativity, you're not going to be able to do it. All great, deep, meaningful stuff. The Frank Oz of it, the performance, not just of the puppet, but the voice acting. Out of all of Yoda's great quotes and funny moments, I think one that sticks with me the most is the delivery in Return of the Jedi when Luke's like, so I am a Jedi now. And Yoda's like, oh. Oh, you think? No. Even as he's like struggling to keep his last breath so he can tell Luke the most important things, he's like, look at the hubris on this kid. No, I got one more assignment for you. And to give prequel Yoda his chops, I just adore Attack of the Clones Yoda, because I think that Yoda did come off a little bit testy, a little bit harsh in The Phantom Menace, and I think there's a real course correction in Attack of the Clones where we see him as somebody who has a sense of humor, who has a sense of kindness. Master Kenobi has lost a planet. How embarrassing! And the kids all tittering at him is like, that's some high end Yoda stuff for me.
Yeah, and it slides directly into all that Clone Wars stuff that we got to spend a lot of time with, both just as fans, but also here at ForceCenter when you and I, Joseph, did the Clone Wars report. Just thinking of him, speaking of those clones in the first episodes, him going on that dark journey. Fighting the shadows of himself later on. There's so much there to pull from Yoda. It's almost not fair to Grogu, but yet here he is on your shelf, Jen. Grogu's on your shelf, not Yoda.
I know.
Yeah. Maybe Yoda might have more albums, and he's got some deep cuts, but does he have as many hits as Grogu? Let's talk about that. Jennifer, you got a Grogu in your hands. You're checking out something.
It was kind of on the button.
Okay. You're going to the button.
So let's talk about the language of it, right? So obviously Yoda has all these fantastic, wonderful sayings that are all over us and tattooed on our bodies. But the thing that Grogu has is universal language. Whatever language you speak, you can understand Grogu. You get something out of this character. I don't know if it's the eyes. I don't know what the design is that makes him so appealing. Maybe because he doesn't look as old as Yoda.
I mean, those eyes are doing the heavy lifting. I mean, in the best way possible. I mean,
the eyes. Look at the eyes. So that I think has it going. Like if you're a kid and you don't really understand what Yoda is saying, you have Grogu, which kids can identify with. Is doing the impossible, people underestimating you, and you being in these moments, being able to save the people around you, being able to use the Force, and then taking a nap. Like these are things that kids can relate to, and so that is Grogu's advantage, and that he's at Target everywhere.
So, what are some of your favorite Grogu moments, Jen?
Oh my gosh. I mean, just like the school scene when he's going to the little school school, like he's in kindergarten, which my daughter just went to, but he still wants to have his little snacks.
Yeah.
Like it just even like the interactions with Pelly and how tender she is. It's such a great moments that she has where you see this other side of Pelly, with this really fun character, but who's very sweet and tender and like a babysitter or surrogate mom. Or even just seeing Grogu jumping, when he's training with Luke, that cracked me up. That cracked me up.
His little his crappy jump,
yes.
his always with you, it cannot be done jump. Like, don't wanna. Yeah.
Like look at the jumps between Yoda, which I did not like the fight sequence with Yoda. I really bristle against that. Whereas with Grogu, I was cheering the whole way. It looked very realistic in my mind of how Grogu might jump.
Is this 2002 angst that's carried on, Jen?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It feels like it has not dissipated. That you're still not sure about that scene.
I almost said the word. I truly dislike it. I watch it and I'm like, oh God. There are very few things about Star Wars that I can't get past. Right? Jedi rocks.
Is it because I want to analyze this a second there? Is if Yoda wasn't groaning and grunting and while he was fighting Dooku, would that make it a little less for you?
It's just it looks too cartoonish.
Gotcha.
It doesn't look real to me. Whereas you guys have seen the behind the scenes, right? Didn't they actually have puppeteers like in their green suits like flipping Grogu, and didn't they like meld that with the digital effects?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, like when he's doing the training with the Mandalorian judge and that, I think there's some. I think the general thing has been we don't do with CGI anything that the puppet can't do or move like, which I think really, really helps. The Attack of the Clones, like I totally get it. I think if you've lived forever with sort of old, wise Yoda, that it's a shock. And then, we're in this different world where like, I think so many people have grown up with like, well, of course Yoda has a lightsaber. Whereas for us sitting in a theater, it was like, are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? Are they going to do it?
Yeah.
Man, the groaning and the grunting makes it for me. That one of my favorite Yoda quotes, along with "Do or do not," there's no try, is like when he just goes for it, puts his back into it, and then at the end, after he's saved the day, calling his cane over and going, "Oh."
That's it.
Quality. Talk about universal language. That's the universal language of anyone who is middle-aged or above, right?
I'm feeling that today. Love that.
Yeah. So, Ken, for you, Grogu moments that are most powerful, either because of the depth or the whimsy.
Yeah, a couple come to mind. First, I'll just say anything with him interacting with the late, great Carl Weathers. As Grief Karga, wave your little magic hands, and he's trying to eat me, and all those moments. That's Grief doing a lot of the work as well as Grogu. But those moments make me laugh. I mentioned the IG-11 stuff where he's riding in him. I don't. That still just gets me. I giggle when I think about it. But two moments. Yes. No. Yeah, and just walking through town. No. Yeah. End of season 1 where he does the big save against the fire trooper, against the flame trooper. I think it was such a magical moment. As a moment of action. It was something that I think we, certainly were could have believed he was capable of, especially after his work with the Mudhorn there. So it wasn't like it was a surprise, but it was just an emotional moment, and it was so big and it was so heroic, and it was this little 50-year-old baby coming through in the most adult way. And then I pair that with Book of Boba Fett and Common the Rancor falling asleep, nestling into the folds of the Rancor. I just love everything about that, and a lot of lessons learned, and an important lesson for those around about how to break cycles of violence, which is one of the key themes to Book of Boba Fett. So I love those two moments.
Yeah, those are great. I mean, I think a lot of his, season one moments are iconic for a reason because they are his first
Mm-hmm.
hits,
Mm-hmm.
because we are getting to know him. But I think that curiosity in that second episode in particular, I think, is what really sold me on the character. I remember
Mm-hmm.
really liking the first episode of The Mandalorian and going, okay, I'm intrigued by this. Where do they go with the baby Yoda? And then the second one just being like, I kind of can't believe how relatable, how adorable,
Mm-hmm.
how perfect he
Yes.
is. And some of that was those shots where Dan was like, stay in your floating pram, and then
Mm-hmm.
Dan would look down and he'd be out again, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of that curiosity of, I want to engage, I want to be a part of what's going on around me. That's a huge one. And continuing through season one, when Dan would be like, stay on the ship, and he'd turn around and he'd just be waddling out going like, nope, I
Yeah.
want to see the world.
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful. I Everything in the cookie episode is phenomenal, all the way through to the throwing up. But that moment where he just puts his hand out of like, what if you gave me the cookies? Wouldn't that be great? Is so perfect, leading up to the Force stealing. Endless number of like great, cute, iconic moments. But I think for me, with a character like Grogu, he could become all sugar and just become like
Mm-hmm.
disgusting after 5 bites because it's just too sugary. But he is, given this base of trauma, and I think the show has done such a great job of exploring that. The Ahsoka training episodes where he has a "don't wanna, not gonna" attitude. And perhaps one of my favorite Grogu moments, because I think it's kind of the tipping point to where we're going next, is when the armorer is telling him, to be a Mandalorian, you gotta face your path. And he's going through that ritual that we saw Din go through of like, there's something magical about this hammer hitting the Beskar, and you gotta listen. And the way his little face and the little teeth are kind of trembling, and he's taking those first steps to think about the stuff he doesn't want to think about. There are those moments of like, oh, baby Yoda's not going to be a baby forever. He's going to have to face his darkness. Those are the moments, or his trauma. Those are the moments where it's like, okay, he is not a one-trick pony. He's not a cheap marketing tool who can just be endlessly cute in the same ways. He's going to grow. He's a real character who has to face things. It's one of my favorite Grogu moments.
Love it, and leads to that wonderful Kelleran Beck moment. Still one of my favorite moments in Star Wars.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
good, so good. All right, so as we could talk about these two forever, but as we head toward the end, I think we need to look for personal metrics of how we're going to make this decision. Ken, has anything in our discussion helped you think about how you are going to make this decision?
It's hard to not weigh a lifetime of influence and admiration for Yoda versus, the new Coke that I've been drinking since 2019. But Grogu will stand the test of time. He's already stand the test of time. I think what you're saying right there, Joseph, is really important, that it wasn't a space macaroon that just kind of you wanted to put aside after a couple bites. He's got places to go, and still, I think we're still probably leading towards the moments that will be his first words, or teen Yoda, if you will, teen Grogu. But for me, I do go back to the lessons that I've been able to and blessed to learn from Yoda all these years, and then see him again for the first time. I think, Jen, you mentioned do or do not. There is no try. That's something I've lived with my entire life. But we, not too long ago, Joseph, did a deep dive on that concept. I remember it came up, and just breaking it down in a way that I understood it in a new way 40 years into that. Yoda keeps giving me lessons. It's hard for Grogu to overcome that. One day he might, but for me, I still go with that. So
you're weighing it based on the impact on your own personal life, the guidance that you can get. Yeah. Jennifer, do you have any metric emerging to help you make this decision?
I'm challenged because of the specificity of Grogu. Grogu's saccharine sweetness is balanced with how real Grogu is to an actual toddler. The moment of wanting to grab the silver, little ball, eating the ice spiders, the knobby white spiders or whatever. Just like, oh, and like how Mando, oh my gosh, there are so many moments where I'm like, oh, Mando, I can feel your frustration, right? So I love that. I love that we're seeing like these toddler moments, and my daughter was a toddler when Grogu was first introduced. I love seeing that on screen. However, what I love about Yoda is that he has this weird little puppet. Is so otherworldly. It's not really grounded in any reality, right? But the sayings I still cling to. I just was reminding my daughter, do or do not, there is no try. The Last Jedi, the role of mentors and parents, and Yoda still is teaching me. That to me is valuable and totally unique to Star Wars.
Yeah, man, it sounds like you're both pretty much decided Yoda. Is that correct?
Yeah. Look, we just got time. Grogu might win this. I joked with a different generation, but it might. I don't mean that in terms of age, but someone who came aboard the Star Wars train in 2019 is going to be like Yoda, the dude that kind of is hiding some stuff in the Jedi Order. There's a lot of discussions out there now I see online of people like, well, hold on, Yoda's got some blame on him for things, and I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'd love to discuss it. You know what I mean? It's fascinating because Yoda's just. You mentioned the pop stars of different generations, Joseph. Yoda's just released enough albums. He's been around long enough to say something stupid in an interview or release the wrong kind of song. Like, Grogu hasn't got there yet. As Mick Jagger said about the Beatles, we didn't get to see their disco album because they pulled up stakes before that. All right, so, but Yoda in the end for me, yeah, still.
Yeah, no, he didn't do a weird, the David Bowie steel metal hammers album. Yeah, this Jennifer talking about Grogu truly as such an accurate representation of a toddler is really beautiful. I feel like in some ways got to live with him a long time, but in some ways like Yoda is in the same way like an ideal version of like a loving grandparent.
Yes.
And so like I almost made myself cry thinking about it of like, well, I don't have either of those right now. I don't have a grandparent or a child. Which do I need more right now? I think Ken, though, that you have swayed me the most with there's still time to do another episode of this of Subjective Wars where Grogu can win. I feel like if Yoda was giving me advice, he'd probably tell me to let go of my past and pick Grogu. But you know what, Yoda, I'm not ready to listen. Sorry, we all make mistakes. We all grow at our own pace. I think for me, Grogu is a phenomenal character, and I think his greatest triumph is he isn't Baby Yoda. He's Grogu, and he's his own character on his own journey, and I think that is really powerful. But at the end of the day, I got a lot of Grogu action figures. I got Grogu socks, but I have had my Yoda since 1980, and he has never, ever left my side to the point where I'm sitting here talking about him, and he's within arm's reach. And I when I got, the training in school of like, hey, if there's a fire, don't pick up anything. In my mind, I thought, I'm picking up Yoda. I don't care. Even if there's a fire in my house, I'm picking up this little grandpa that I need to be kind and wise and funny and honest if I F up, but ultimately more than anything, to be there for me. And I think that's the emotional truth of Yoda that is too powerful for Grogu to overcome right now.
Yeah. And Jen, I teased you earlier too, but I literally, not only do I have Grogu right here behind me for those watching, I'm counting, I have 4 Grogu things behind my camera, 1 Yoda up there. So, Jen, you're not alone. Joseph, I wish I had my Kenner. I don't know. I sold my Kenner. That's a fine. I would have kept that. I'm with you. And if fire, grab that. But that's the power of Grogu, marketing tool, but in the best ways possible. So, Jen, I want to make sure I'm fair to you on that.
Yeah, I might have more Grogus in the home, but I got 2 Yodas within arm's reach. So I guess that's our new metric of how close is it to your arms. That's the one that's going to win on Subjective Wars. Well, this has been an incredibly challenging episode. We would love, as we hold up all of our little guys, we would love to know who's within your arm's reach. Either literally, physically, or emotionally, would you choose Yoda or Grogu, and why? We always love to acknowledge that so much of our Star Wars passion is generational, and that's probably definitely affecting all of us. We would love to hear from people of all ages and all amounts of time that you have loved Star Wars. Ken, do you want to take us home?
I do. Grogu will help me. We are Force Center, and we can be found on social media at Force Center Pod. We're on Instagram. Facebook page is Force Center Podcast. YouTube, hey, if you're watching, subscribe so you can see little things like all of our Grogu and Yoda toys. You get merch available currently at tpublic.com/user/Force Center. You can support us directly at patreon.com/Force Center. Thanks to our Patreon Force Center friends who were in our Discord giving us props for surviving an earthquake. You know, it was 4.4, but in the moments, you don't know what you're experiencing. So it was quite an adventure. You can follow me at Ken Napzok or go to my website, kennapzok.com, for more information on shows coming. Jen, where can they find you and videos, I'm sure, on Grogu?
That's right. You can see my Star Wars creature obsession on all the social media sites at Jennifer Landa or TikTok at Jennifer Landa 1138.
There you go, Joseph. This is being released a day of a big show, but there's still time if people are watching early in the day to get the tickets to the show.
That is right. I got a big birthday coming up, so to celebrate, I'm doing a show on my birthday eve. The show is called Horror Years Old, and it is a comedy variety show celebrating and coping aging. I think Yoda would be into that. So if you would like to see that show, you can find tickets on my website, josephscrimshaw.com. If you're in the Los Angeles area and watching this on Friday morning, you can come see it live. Or, as many kind Force Center listeners have done, you can get tickets to the live stream. If you buy tickets to the live stream, the link is emailed out to you, and then you'll have a week to watch it. So you can check that out there. Ken's on the show, Hal Lublin, Audrey Kearns, my friend Laser, all sorts of great people. So check that out on my website, josephscrimshaw.com. All right, that is it from Yoda and all the Grogus. That is it. This has been Subjective